Area access is good to go. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting of the Public Health and Safety Committee to order at 5:15 PM. The first item on the agenda is to select a chairperson and vice chairperson for the 2024-2026 term. Are there any nominations for chair of Public Health and Safety? Alder Larson.
Thank you. I'll nominate Lisa Rasmussen.
Alder Rasmussen, do you accept?
I do.
Okay. Alder Rasmussen has been nominated for the position of chair. Are there any further nominations? Okay. Is there a motion to close the nominations?
Do we select vice chair too? Did you say nominate?
I'm going to hand it over to the chair, and then you guys can vote for vice chair. Alder Watson, you moved to close the nominations. Is there a second? Alder Larson. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Motion carries, and I will turn the meeting over to Alder Rasmussen.
Okay, we'll let Big Shuffle begin here.
Welcome back.
All right, thank you. Thank you, thank you. With that, I will open nominations for vice chair. Are there currently nominations for vice chair? Go ahead, Carol. It's microphone day. But I did hear that. There was a nomination for Alder Larson as vice chair. Is Alder Larson, are you willing to accept nomination? Okay. Any additional nominations for vice chair? Dan?
You want to just test yours real quick?
Try your mic again, Carol.
Hi. Oh,
Better.
it's working.
Okay, we're good. We're on. Okay, so Alder Larson has accepted nomination for vice chair. Additional nominations for vice chair? If not, I'll take a motion to close nominations. Motion from Watson, is there a second? Second by Lukens. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor of casting a unanimous ballot for Alder Larson as vice chair signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None are opposed. Congratulations, Alder Larson.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Item number, at this point, since our committee's in session, I'll ask the police chief and the deputy fire chief to join us up here as our committee advisors. Thank you. We always have seats and microphones for them. Item number 3 on our agenda is to elect 2 members of this committee to serve on the Liquor Licensing Review Subcommittee. In the prior term, the members that were serving, are we at, okay, meeting date and time. Thank you, Tegan. I skipped an item in between there. So let's first go to item number 2, which is to establish a regular meeting date and time for this committee for 2024 to 2026. Traditionally, this committee has always met on the third Monday at 5:15. We're meeting at a different time today because we had some scheduling conflicts last week. Does anybody, is the third Monday at 5:15 workable for our members, or would you like a different day and time? So that historically, that has always worked well on the city calendar as well, and it seems the staff is available at that time as well. Okay,
I would move to accept that meeting time and date.
okay. So we have a motion to accept the third Monday at 5:15 every month. Is there a second to accept that time? Second from Carol Lukens. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor of approving that meeting time signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None are opposed, so we will continue forward on our typical day and time. Now we're to item number 3, is elect 2 members of this committee to serve on the Liquor Licensing Review Subcommittee. That subcommittee meets with applicants for Class B liquor licenses, along with the rest of that subcommittee, and we have discussion with those proposed applicants about all facets of the responsibilities expected of those license holders and the operations of their establishment. Currently, in the last term, the outgoing members that were serving on that panel were Alder Larson and myself. Do we have nominations to pick 2 people for that this time? Alder Lukens, go ahead.
I would nominate that Alders Larson and Rasmussen continue.
Okay. Alder Larson, are you willing to continue on that subcommittee?
Yes, Madam Chair.
I am as well. Are there other nominations that would like that spot? If not, do we have a motion to close nominations for the Liquor License Review Subcommittee? Motion by Watson, second by Lukens. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor of casting a unanimous ballot for Alder Larson and Alder Rasmussen to continue to serve on the Liquor License Review Subcommittee signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None are opposed. That matter carries as well. Item 4 is to approve the minutes of our previous committee meeting on 3/18 of '24, copies of which are in the packets. Does anyone who was present at the meeting have any adjustments or corrections to the minutes that they would like to have done? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes. Motion by Larson, is there a second? Do we have a second on the minutes? Alder McElhaney is a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, the minutes are approved. Item number 5 is to consider approval or denial of various license applications. We did have a couple recommended for denial this evening. One is actually back from a prior meeting, and that is a new operator license for Kenneth LaShook. We had given him an opportunity to submit evidence of rehab. My understanding is that he has submitted documents?
That's correct.
Okay. And have the documents that have been received altered your recommendation at all, Chief?
I think there's an opportunity for us with new members of this committee or this committee to look at it and help give me some guidance on what your expectations are. In this particular case, we have an individual that is seeking a bartender's license in order to work in the retail establishment of a gas station and that sells alcohol. There's a significant crime that required incarceration, and we have a letter of support and the documentation that he successfully completed his probation or parole as a result of that. The real struggle for me is the significance of the original crime. But we also have an environment where my understanding is he's currently employed there right now, and the only difference would be this license would allow him to work alone in that store and currently he can sell alcohol in that store legally as long as there is a licensed bartender in that store. So individuals commit crimes in our community, and we still need them to be employed and be able to care for people. They have responsibility. And so those are my concerns. I do see that as evidence of rehabilitation and a business owner in our community that is advocating on his behalf. But at the same time, that's a significant crime, and I'm looking for some guidance on what the expectations of this committee are as well.
Okay. And I think that is something that we will have to devote part of our next committee session to, is some training on that approval and denial criteria. I think every time we start a new term, it's good to refresh ourselves as far as what that criteria is that's been established and what the yes and no answer means. And then as we look at certain types of violations that are an automatic restriction from possessing such a license. So I don't think we're in that territory here, with the type of violation, but that doesn't really.
You pay me to make a decision, and
Correct.
if you're asking me for one, I see working alone in a retail establishment that's in a neighborhood with children coming in, and this was a crime against children. And my recommendation at this point would be to deny the license.
Okay. And that really is the guidance that we look for. And that is with any denials, whether they are servers, whether they're cab drivers, whether they're Class A or Class B establishments that are employing folks, we really are looking for that guidance with a law enforcement eye. So that really is, I guess, the recommendation that we are seeking. Alder McElhaney.
I guess I just want to understand how this is going to change on January 1st. We're not going to be looking at these licenses anymore. for retail, is what I understand. So will that, will we have to go back, is what I'm wondering.
We'll maybe let the clerk talk to that. I think that there is legislation that allows for a statewide license that's portable, right? But does that supersede these licenses as well, or is it an either/or?
It's either or. We'll still have as far as we know, we'll still have an operator's license for just the city of Wausau that's still follows our licensing process, but then there will be a statewide license available that the Department of Revenue's Alcohol Division will do their whole background check process in order to approve and issue those licenses.
And it's not that an applicant has to possess both, right? They can.
Correct.
If they obtain the state license, they don't need to obtain ours?
Correct.
But if they obtain ours, it's not portable. So they have to choose which application process they opt to follow, I think. So we will still, I think, see a continuous flow of people, unless they're people that are looking to be relocatable and easily portable to other communities. Okay, and so the other person recommended for denial, and I guess before we move away from Kenneth Lashuk, is Mr. Lashuk in the audience tonight with us? Would you like to come up to the ordinance allows for you to address the committee and, I guess outline anything that's revealed on your record that's not factually accurate, or, obviously you've submitted evidence of rehabilitation, anything that you wish to have the committee know?
No, it's your guys' decision.
Okay,
I'll just have to start looking for another job then.
sure. Oh, well, and,
Because this basically is holding me from being terminated.
okay. All right, thank you for those comments. So, and we have one other denial, and what we would do is if we want to take one out of the batch and act upon it separately, we certainly can do that. The other individual that's recommended for denial is public transport license, Christopher McGurk. Is Christopher McGurk in the audience? Christopher, if you'd like to come up, you're allowed to address the committee with regard to your record. And you also have the opportunity to present evidence of rehab if it exists.
I do have a letter of recommendation.
Well, and I guess the letter of recommendation is a little bit different than the completion of rehabilitation.
It speaks to my ability and my responsibility so far with my child support and how I've been able to comply and completed the 16-week court-ordered program due to my employment.
Okay,
Madam Chair?
go ahead.
Would you like to view that document, or should we let
think
the police chief
They
view that
could
document?
give that document to the chief. Ordinarily, that's not a decision that we ask him to make on the fly. If you're not comfortable with that, chief, making that decision, we could defer action on Mr. McGurk until our next session.
Sure, and I would inform this committee and Mr. McGurk that it is never my desire to deny anyone
Correct.
making a living and working,
I understand.
regardless of mistakes people may have made in their past. When you're thinking of evidence of rehabilitation, I always encourage everyone, if there's been an AODA component and you've worked with counselors or some type of program, evidence of successful completion of that. If there's a probation and parole component, to be able to show that, like in this particular case, there's a methamphetamine component, to be able to convince and show rehabilitation that that's no longer an issue. So the letter is a good start, but
Right. I am also able to get one from my probation officer.
yeah, I would, I won't be changing my opinion based on this letter at this point, but I would encourage you to get those things, to be honest with you, a probation agent that sends me a letter saying we should let you do this because they're confident in your ability to do it and not be a hazard to the community. That's very powerful rehabilitation evidence as
sir.
opposed to just a letter. So that would be my ask of you.
Okay.
Yep, and the situation we have is that, with a public transport license in the city, we have to know, as a municipality, that oftentimes the folks that summon and ride in public transport are not necessarily unimpaired. And I think that we have to be able to hold those transport drivers to a higher standard and know that we can trust those people in your care and transport. So while other communities may allow a public transport license for certain things that Wausau doesn't, we have a set criteria because we're really holding a higher standard there.
Yes.
For public transport. So I guess committee members, is it your desire to hold, would you like to take these licenses, acceptances, and denials as a batch? Or are you wishing to exclude Mr. LaShook or Mr. LeGurk for separate action? Typically, if your goal is to, or if your motivation is to uphold the recommendations of the chief, we would take one motion to accept or deny licenses as recommended by staff, at which point one vote would take care of the entire list. So unless your motivation is to take separate action, I would accept a motion to accept or deny licenses as recommended by staff. Motion from Larson, is
No,
there a
no,
second?
Madam Chair, I just
Oh,
wanted to say
go
something.
ahead.
I'm not entirely convinced that we should allow these two to move forward at this time. So I'll make a motion at this time to deny them both.
Okay. And then obviously both are allowed to reapply at some point and submit different evidence or additional evidence.
Yes.
We certainly would consider them again. So your comment then dovetails also with the motion I was talking about. Do we have a motion to accept or deny licenses as recommended? That would
I
uphold?
just made that motion.
Okay, I'm sorry, thank you. So a motion from Alder Larson. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? That gets the item on the floor. And what that does is it allows you to uphold the two denials and approve all of the ones that were recommended for acceptance that were on the list that's in your packet. Okay, we have a second from Alder Lukens. Further discussion? Go ahead, Chief.
I just want to make sure that my understanding is the same as yours, which is Mr. McGurk would have the ability to, over the next several weeks, provide that evidence of rehabilitation to the clerk's office, which would then provide it to me, and it could be brought back at the next meeting, and he wouldn't need to reapply and to pay an additional $70.
Okay, so yes, and under those circumstances, then we would want to exempt Mr. McGurk from the vote. So then what we would do is we would hold action on Christopher McGurk until our next session. That would give him that time. And so then the motion to accept or deny licenses as recommended by staff would be for the entire list with the exception of Christopher McGurk. And so is that okay with the first for the motion? Accept or deny with the exception of Mr. McGurk? And then we'll take his next month?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Is that amicable with the second? It is. Okay. So then, just to be clear, Mr. McGurk will submit additional evidence as he's able to acquire it to the chief, who will make a final recommendation for our next meeting. So we'll have him back on our next agenda. The rest of these will all be handled with one vote. That said, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries. So, Mr. McGurk, go ahead and gather those documents. You can get those to the clerk's office, and they'll get them down to the police department, to the chief for you.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you for that.
Thank you all for that. I
Yep,
appreciate it.
you bet. Thanks for coming in. Yeah. Okay, so that brings us to item number 6, which is the Q1 2024 report from Wausau Fire. And so, Deputy Chief Plus, do you have anything within the report that you wish to highlight for us?
Yes, I'd like to first say thanks for letting us go to a quarterly report. We appreciate it. Makes it a little less redundant every month. Just a few highlights I'd like to highlight in there is the Wausau Fire Department has really built some great partnerships with North Central Technical College, Marathon County, and Aspirus Hospital. And with that partnership, we've been able to create that paramedic and get that paramedic community care paramedic position approved. That will do some great work for our community and help some of the high utilizers in our community find some appropriate resources. The other result of those partnerships, especially with North Central Technical College, is work on creating an apprenticeship program. This apprenticeship program is taking kind of a page out of the trade unions and helping individuals who want to get into the fire service obtain the training, the hands-on training, while also earning an income. And through some congressional direct spending requests, I just wanted to clarify that it's a $3 million request in partnership with North Central Technical College for that apprenticeship program, and not a $300 million request.
Okay.
And then also wanted to highlight that our ladder 2 out at Station 2 still remains out of service following an incident where a firefighter was injured. And I can report that firefighter is making a recovery, but still remains off of work.
Okay.
And that incident also remains under investigation. So,
Excellent.
under the monthly incident reports and comparisons, you can see there was an increase in January and February and March. That increase averages out to about a 10% increase in call volume this year so far. And we've applied for several different grants. One of the most recent grants that we were awarded was a grant to provide AEDs in public spaces like our parks, the 400 block, AEDs outside all the fire stations, and that was provided through the Community Foundation.
Excellent.
And those were kind of the highlights I wanted to highlight, but if you have any questions on the report, I'd be happy to answer any
Okay.
specific questions.
I was at the meeting where you had debuted the idea of a apprenticeship program, and I was so glad to see the partnership and the optimism that was expressed by both the governor and his aides and NTC. I think that program really could serve as a model in the state because many departments are facing the same struggles we are, and we're all competing for the same talent pool. So I hope that we will see some real success with that. Anyone else have questions at all on the quarterly report from fire or comments? If not, we'll place their report on file. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Item number 7 is the Quarter 1 2024 report from Wausau Police. Chief, anything on your report that you would like to highlight?
Not necessarily on the report, but, and I'm not asking for an answer right now, but I would ask this committee to consider what information over the next cycle, over the next 2 years, would be beneficial to you, either on a monthly basis or in a quarterly report. As it stands right now, there are decisions that the previous council has made that we have agreed to provide information. If you recall back to those times, like we'll report on it. So for example, the impact of open records requests on our police department, and whether the decision to give us 0.6 FTE and the fire department 0.4 FTE is moving the needle when it comes to our open record stuff. So that we would have the opportunity to report on that. I think that it would be appropriate for this committee for us to report on progress or the activities of our team of downtown officers that was recently discussed and approved when we get that spun up. So there may be information in this report that is just information we're providing you, as opposed to the ability to bring people to this committee that you can ask questions of and dig deeper into those type of initiatives or any others. So again, I'm not asking for any type of decisions made today. I'm not opposed to it, but the Wausau Police Department wants to make sure this committee has the information it needs in order to do the work that you do and feel comfortable with the activities of the police department. So whatever that might look like, we're willing to make adjustments moving forward.
I think that us having some measurement data as we go, both for the downtown initiative, I guess all of it. I think that for us to measure our effectiveness for the things that we're currently experimenting with, we've got a couple of programs that we're trying to gauge the effectiveness of. We obviously, at the end of those terms, will take a look at, or before that, take a look at whether or not the needle has been moved. But I think along the way, it's helpful for us to know if we're starting to see a turnaround or see the impact that we're expecting from those programs. So I think as part of the quarterly report, that data is certainly useful. I guess, committee, how do you guys feel about, go ahead, Alder Larson.
I guess I'm in full agreement, and especially when the chief it says about I'm especially interested in these 2 new officers we authorized for the downtown. on how it's working out and not working out. And see, if we should maybe tweak that in the future and maybe put that down to one and maybe add another Tracy, or add another Tracy and keep them both. I guess I'm most interested in
Right.
in the progress we're making downtown to keep our downtown safe. Thank you.
Sure. I think that's important information, and there's 3 months now to develop that data since we've gone to quarterly reporting, just to see where we're at, in terms of the activity and complaint volume and things too, I think is helpful. Go ahead.
This can Chief, have you got any applications for these two positions yet, as of yet, or are you interviewing, or what's the status on that?
So the two positions for the actual team that's going to be doing the work, those are going to be officers that are currently employed with us, and we'll be backfilling. So we're in an expedited hiring process right now, hopefully to bring those officers on board. If the stars and the moon align, we'll bring them on board in June. But we have 7 or 8 applications from current officers to participate in this team. So that selection process is occurring next week, and within 2 weeks, our downtown community should be seeing that team.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that.
And I just wanted to clarify, if every single month you have Tracy that's here giving you a report on the work that she's doing, I'm not trying to create work for our staff, trust me, there's plenty of it, but
There is.
if you want the homeless team here every month or every other month as part of that presentation to be able to talk about what they're experiencing and what they're seeing, I'm more than happy to have them be available. It wouldn't necessarily have to be a quarterly report.
Right. And I guess I would want to afford them at least some time to get their feet up under them and get the work underway before they feel like they are needed to report here like in May. I think, I guess I feel like we should give them at least a month or a month and a half to start to get the effort rolling so they have something concrete to report to us as far as what impacts they've been seeing and, maybe the difference that it's been making. I guess committee, how do you guys feel about that? Would you want to talk with them monthly and see what the experience has been? Or less often, or go ahead, Lou.
I don't know that both of them need to be here, but at least one or the other, maybe.
Okay.
To give a report along with Tracy, once they get their feet wet, as you said, Alder
Yeah.
Rasmussen.
That, and I think if we could schedule them such that the committee meeting doesn't require a special trip for them, we hope to mitigate overtime if their workday falls outside of the meeting of this committee. I mean, if one or the other can make it, that's fine. If not, for a particular month, we completely understand that. But I think to have their insight would be helpful. Carol?
And if it is difficult at all for them to attend, even if they could write up a little something, report or anything, I don't know if they're able to do that, but I would appreciate, because I'd be curious, to see what, what data shows or, how it's going, whether it's every month, every other month. I don't have, I guess, a huge preference for that, so whatever works
Sure.
well. Thanks.
Okay, well, let's get them on board, and then we'll maybe invite them in for the June meeting, and see based on, how that dialogue goes. If we know that we are interested in hearing more of that, we can start to come up with something a little more cyclical for them too, so,
That sounds good.
perfect. Thank you for that. Anybody have questions on the quarter 1 police report for the chief? If not, we'll place that report on file as well. Number 8 is the tavern activities report for the month of March. Looks like a fairly typical month. Anything on the report that you guys have questions for the chief on? Or anything that is noted on the report, chief, that you wanted to discuss with us?
No, I just, my mind is drawing a blank. Are there any taverns that there is a request for the police department to be monitoring currently?
The Domino. Domino for being open.
Domino for being open, yes.
Yeah,
'Cause-
and my understanding in the last month is it's been observed open. I don't have the dates that it was, but the majority of the days upon being checked, it's not open.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I guess, do we want to continue to do that, to monitor it, to
Well-
report back?
They have to be using the license they've been given. So I mean, if there's extended periods of closure, I think we have to keep an eye on that. We had the same concern with Cruise In, but now the subcommittee met with a new license holder that is taking that. So I think that got, kind of addressed some of that concern.
They've already opened.
Right. And so, I think that if there is either if the ownership or the management of Domino is in flux, and if we're not seeing them open enough days and enough hours to properly utilize the license, I think that's a problem. So, I guess I would ask that the sector patrol just keep an eye on that place and just make sure it's operating, that they're not sitting on a license and then closed. So.
Madam
Okay,
Chair?
Go ahead.
How about, could we invite the owners of the Domino to come into our next meeting and, or perhaps a liquor review meeting, have a liquor review meeting and have them give us the hours of operations that they are open so that we can check? Because personally, I think I've been by there a few times and they've always been closed. And I think that they're getting one over on the city, to be honest with you.
Right. Typically, what we do is when we summon them in the context of a formal expression of concern. So I think the first step we take is to ask the owner to meet with the chief and outline what their plan is and what their current status is. If we can't glean clarity from his dialogue with them, then we would certainly bring them in and we would have a public discussion about what their plan is moving forward to get open and stay open.
Let's do that.
Do you want to do that?
Yes.
Okay. Chief, could you reach out to the owner? And then let us know next month, and if that discussion is not fruitful, then we'll invite the owner into here. Anything else on the report? You see that we've got a little bit of a new spreadsheet that shows where they've done compliance checks and license checks, if they've observed violations. I like that chart because it really does give us an accurate depiction of, where they're at in terms of checking establishments. And then you've still got the little narrative for the events that they've highlighted on the report that have taken place at the various establishments. This really isn't out of the ordinary. I mean, we always have, a few things. There's always a few things, and
I will let the lieutenant responsible, I'm emailing him as we speak, so I will let him know that the committee likes the chart.
committee likes his report. Yes, it's good. It does give us a little more of a holistic point of view. The old report really just showed us the few that were checked and what happened there. So I think for us to be able to follow that report is helpful. Anybody else have any questions at all on the tavern report? This is one that we get every month. If we observe a pattern of activity at a certain establishment, or we observe things that are serious enough in nature that they're accumulating demerit points, then we have a process whereby we've summoned the owner and we have public dialogue with them. So we've not had to do that for a while, so hopefully that is a positive trend that we see continue. Most of our license holders really work hard to get it right, and it's helpful for us when they do. So if there's no additional comment on the tavern report, we'll place it on file as well. Item number 9 is the community outreach update. We'll invite our community outreach coordinator, Tracy, up to give us an update on how things have been going. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. So my report tonight, as indicated in your packet, there was around 232 individuals reported as unhoused through the different entities that I check with. The shelter remained at about 84% capacity for the month of March. I did not get full data from Salvation Army. They stopped sending me stuff around the 15th of March, so that data looks incomplete, and I apologize for that, but that I reported out what they gave me. The one thing I wanted to let you guys know is that I did have a conversation with Colleen over at the Salvation Army, and as of today, they still have 7 single males in shelter. Everyone else has moved out of the shelter, so as of the 26th, when they stop sheltering singles altogether, 7 will be exited out. She is working with them pretty diligently on trying to find them solutions for housing, employment, et cetera, but, that's only as good as the people put into it as far as work goes. So she's trying hard. And I guess I just want to report that we're not going to be, putting 18 people out on the street on the 26th, because I think that was a fear.
It was
yeah.
that we were going to see a whole lot of pressure on the other shelters.
Right. So, with that being said, Catholic Charities was full about 14 days in the month of March. Their turnaway volume, though, was 146 for last month, which is probably the highest it's ever been. I think we're going to see that as we see more people coming into town, and, we're going to deal with that as we can. I met with about 12 people last month just to start giving them resources, and I'm really encouraged by the 2 new officers coming into the downtown area to help move people to resources and link them in with me, hopefully. There's times where there's people, new homeless people in our community that I don't even connect with for months at a time just because they don't seek me out or we just never connect. So I think it'll be really helpful in that regard. So I'm looking forward to working with the 2 officers that are selected. Most of the time I come into this meeting and I talk about all the successes, and I do want to say that we really have moved the needle. We still are at about a 74% success rate in those that I've housed, which I will say I think is pretty good. But I'm here tonight to talk just a little bit about some of the failures and some of the issues that I'm having with the unhoused, getting them the resources that they need. And it really speaks to one of the topics that we've talked about several times, and that is like a transitional housing type of model. I know that Chief brought that concept with CW Solutions a couple meetings ago. And I do want to tell you that I really do think that's necessary. Just Friday and again today, I spent close to 8 hours with 2 separate individual females that are unhoused. And the experiences they are telling me they're going through as an unhoused individual are they're heartbreaking. I was able to get one of those individuals connected with family in Tomahawk, so she is safely in Tomahawk now. And the other one, I am happy to report, I was able to get housing in Merrill, and she signed her lease tonight. I'm going to give her the keys after this meeting, and she'll be housed tomorrow. My point is those are 2 individuals that could have absolutely utilized and been successful in a transitional housing program in our own community. So, with that being said, I also talk about how when I'm working with people, I'm trying desperately to get them connected with other resources, not just myself. So we're working with the ADRC to try to get them with Inclusa or Lakeland Care. We're working with North Central Healthcare to try to get them involved in case management that way. And, I can only lead them, what is the saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right? So I'm here to report that of the 46 individuals that I've housed, only 9 of those have taken advantage of those other offerings. Of those 9, 4 have successfully engaged in them. And what I'm finding is I continually have more people getting evicted every month that passes. And so I know that housing them in a lease is not the solution. So I'm here tonight to say I'm excited about what might be coming for the city. I'm excited to have another committee of the whole if we can get that together. I think that we need to brainstorm and come up with some really creative solutions on how to continue to combat this issue. And I think we're doing a great job. I am definitely not up here saying anything outside of that. I'm really proud of the work everyone has done, but I know there's room to do more.
Sure.
And so.
I agree. I think that, I know that other council members have also wanted to have that committee of the whole sooner than later. I think that we're working on right now scheduling the council retreat for the mid part of May. And I think that part of that, I know part of that session is priority setting and visioning. And I suspect that with the amount of dialogue that we've had within our council and within our neighborhoods on the issue, I would be surprised if that did not bubble to the top as a key issue that they want to focus on. That said, I think that we certainly should seek to try to hold that committee of the whole. If we can't hold it during the month of May, we'd want to conduct it early in June so that it's not conflicting with other meetings, because I think we want a fair amount of time to devote to it. And just recently, we had some dialogue and public comment where suggestions had been made. And one suggestion that really caught my attention was when Police and Fire Commissioner Will Harris came up, and he talked specifically about perhaps the idea of networking with the county and trying to figure out if there's an opportunity for either some type of a joint task force or a joint committee to analyze these issues and figure out where the two of us as two units of government fit in this. Sometimes units of government can contribute without contributing money. Their contributions can be in other ways. And so we've not really explored that in depth. We've spent a lot of time talking about the fact that we don't feel they're involved enough, but we've not actually worked to engage them in a discussion about how they may want to be involved or how they may feel they could be involved, at least at this early stage. So last week, the mayor and I met, we talked about that idea. I think we both want to know more about what's possible there. And that said, I think that it would behoove us to go together and hold that meeting, with the heads over at county, both with the administrator and perhaps the board chairman, and see if there's a place where we can find common ground in exploring what's possible. So, I think we're both interested in doing that. And it would be great for us to be able to have that dialogue so that we can then, in the context of the committee of the whole, report what our results have been. I think that it's easy for us in our committees and even at council to assume that they don't want to be involved or assume that they're not interested in helping. But no one has flat out said we are not doing this. And so, I think to just firm up like where we all stand as government units that are all affected by this situation. It's not just an urban problem, and it's certainly not just a city problem. So, I think if we can get together and at least like open the door to a conversation, we may find that we can get some help. And we may find that we can't, but I think we need to have that conversation, so.
Sure, and I feel really comfortable saying this too, that I do think, I work pretty closely with the DA's office, and I do think that there's some solutions that might be in the works with the county at some level. I'm not here to talk specifically about that, but they're really engaged in trying to help with this situation as well. And so I just wanted to mention that here because I don't think they're not at the table. I'm super encouraged by them at the table.
Right.
And I don't know, Chief, sorry, I kind of stole the mic before you.
No, this is your moment. I just wanted to take a moment and express how impressed I am on a daily basis with the work that you do and the challenges that you deal with. But I also wanted to highlight in this report of those individuals that are being housed. That isn't possible without partnership with private, for-profit businesses that are property management companies in this area. And there's a paragraph in that report that talks about that probably our best partner, who can't continue to be our partner because of the financial losses that they suffer as a result of damage to the apartment. Those individuals that have been evicted or are in the process of being evicted, the cost of the eviction as well as the damage that's done is just leaving them in a place where they're like, we can't continue to lose money while trying to help out this underserved population. And then also to identify some of the challenges and with reputation of Tracy, to be honest with you. So we had individuals from Chicago, 5 adults that came up with a car and a U-Haul. They packed up all their stuff. They drove right to the police department. They said, we're here to see Tracy. And they said, we moved here from Chicago. We got upset with our landlord. We loaded up all our stuff. We drove up here. We don't have any money. Where are you going to put us? And the answer is like, there's no magic wand to deal with that. But that's a little on the outside where you have 5 individuals in a U-Haul. But like those situations are occurring on a regular basis. And so it doesn't take money to necessarily impact what we do, who we do it for, and how we can do that, and to create policy behind that. So,
Right.
thank you.
I think so. And I think we really, are going to have to walk hand in hand with all of you as a staff to, guide us in our decision-making as opportunities reveal themselves, whether they're new ones or whether they're alliances we already have. So, Alder Larson.
I have a question for Tracy. When it comes to the women, would the women's community, have you talked with them? Would they step up and help out when it comes to women problems?
Yes, so the women's community has amazing supports and resources, but their shelter is typically full. So, they're allowed to work with an advocate on I don't want to say outpatient, I'm using nursing terminology, but they're able to work with advocates, but they don't have the shelter available most times when we call. So the one individual that I'm getting housed tonight, I actually have been working with her for several weeks. and her abuser was just let out of jail, and so she was scared to be here, and I actually called from Marathon to Portage to all over the state and finally got her a DV shelter in Menominee. So it took a lot of work to get her out of here and to get her safe. So, I mean, you know, the bottom line is that we're using all the resources that we can get our hands on, and they're just, like everything else, they're a little watered down. They're not very accessible. There's not enough. So that's kind of what we're running into.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I just had one last comment to the committee. When I'm reporting out every month, I also wanted to ask you, is this the data that you are looking for? Do you want something additional to what I'm reporting out? Am I hitting the mark as far as what you guys are wanting to see each month?
I would say you're hitting the mark and doing a fantastic job, so just keep doing what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's-
I would agree. It's that and more. I mean, because you're not only, I mean, for a while, we started off highlighting only successes because that's all there was. And, you know, I think the longer we go, we're going to see relapse. We're going to see some success and some failure. I think it's important that we know that because that's how we determine what works and what doesn't work. And then if we need to change course in terms of what we're doing strategically, though that course change often starts in this committee. So I think your flow of information is fantastic. I guess, committee members, anything else that you would like to see in terms of reporting? Carol?
Just want to say, not that I can think of right now, but if, given a little time, if there is, we can
Yeah.
always let you know.
I
But
think
thank you for all
if we
you
start
do.
to launch new initiatives or partnerships, I think it would be helpful to report on those.
Okay.
You know, so if we do find an alliance where we can, you know, find new partners, you know, whether they're units of government or whether they're private sector entities or whether they are new programs, like the program that we're researching right now for single females. I think that's to measure the effectiveness of those and the impact that they've made on your work from prior to the time that they existed to the time they've been rolled out. I think that data would be important to capture if we start to launch some of those things that we've been talking about.
Okay.
Becky and then Carol.
Yeah. I don't want to add to your statistic needs, but I really like data instead of narrative.
Okay.
So, you know, I see that, you know, you're giving aid like transportation or finding, you know, community resources for that, for appointments, bus passes. Is there a way we can kind of
Break it
do
down.
break
Sure.
it down? So I also see where Catholic Charities reserves beds for individuals that are working. How many the unhoused have employment? You know, I think that's an important distinction because we hear a lot whenever we try to do a new initiative. We have people in the chamber saying, you know, most of these are one, you know, bill away from being out in unhoused. So I
Sure.
think we need to have a narrative that's correct, right? And so that's what I'm trying to find is like how many are employed that are unhoused. And then for the housing, if we could do like they remain housed at 30 days and then at 90 days.
Okay, sure.
You know, that kind of thing. I think those specific data points will help us even with our narrative within the community. I know that those are issues that people have asked me, well, you know, how many have jobs? How many are really employment seeking? What I'm hearing from you is that, you know, we hear housing first, but if they're not willing to take those other resources, the housing's going to fall through.
Right.
We know that, right? I mean, so I think that's another thing we need to point out is that you have to have buy-in. Somebody needs to want to take that next step after housing, to keep that housing, you know, and to, you know, find a job and to go to your appointments or whatever. So
Yeah, I can absolutely get that employment data from Catholic Charities. They do capture that. And I can tell you that in the month of February, 16% of their population of the 90 were employed.
okay,
So,
perfect.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I think the other thing that, now where were we going with that? As you were talking, I was just thinking that that is definitely good data to capture because I think sometimes that data is misunderstood. The other thing I think what we should identify is kind of where that pinch point is with housing success or failure. If we know And some of the programs that are offered to people once they get housed, there's some barriers to entry. So, I think it would not be too difficult for us to identify with program enrollment and case management, we should see a longer housed tenure and less of that backslide. So, do we know, is that pinch point 30 days? Is it 60 days? Is it 90 days? Without program enrollment, are they in a unit more than maybe 3 months?
Sure.
Before this all starts to snowball where, whether it's the condition of the unit behavior or if the, payments aren't happening, for whatever is causing those evictions. I'm sure it's a combination of factors. But, when the appropriate programs are accepted, I would think our success rate would be much higher. So, an analysis of, or at least just a snapshot of how many are accepting that program entry and then what their results have been. We know that we have this, I guess I'll call it 30 to 45 day gap, where once you get someone to accept services, but yet aren't quite eligible yet for program enrollment in some of the largest programs that we have in the community, that gap month is critical. And, we lack sometimes places for those folks to go.
Yeah.
That's been hard for us.
And I feel like one of the barriers even getting into housing is that we have so many individuals that are required to pay a double security deposit. And all of our nonprofit agencies don't do security deposit because the client ends up getting the security deposit potentially on their way out the door if they move. So what we're finding now is there's less and less help for people to get into a unit because that double security deposit, their incomes don't allow them to come up with double. And so that's just what I dealt with today, to be honest with you. I actually reached out to some of our church community to see, do you have some unrestricted funds that we can use, because our nonprofits aren't able to help in that regard, which is understandable. So that's a barrier. And so if you're asking somebody to put their whole month's check, which is $1,094 for the individual I house tonight or tomorrow, you're asking for her to go into an empty unit without even a bed, but pay her first month's rent and have like $200 left over, $300 left over to get food and furnish her place. So there's lots of barriers even getting them into the unit, so.
Sure. That makes total sense. Becky?
Yeah.
Could we, another avenue, instead of asking for money, if that's, I know that's going to be a pinch point, it's a pinch point with a lot of people that are coming in to the community. But could we look for donations to get the housing? That's what we do. Get donations for beds.
Sure, I'm
if
doing
we
that.
could do that,
Yep.
people are more willing to give things than money. At least then somebody's not trying to pay for a bed or
Sure.
pots and pans or whatever it is.
And I do have that. I have not a big donation ring because I don't have anywhere to store the stuff that people have. So I do have one couple that has couches and things in their warehouse, and they keep that for me, and I reach out to them first, and they typically will deliver too, so it's kind of a nice deal. But, so I've gotten some partnerships around the community with that stuff too. Tammy's at Wausau is really great. She gives me things at a pretty good discount, but, and then some of the other furniture stores around town, they'll just call me and be like, hey, we have this chair, we can't sell it, do you want it? So I get some of that, and that's just partnerships that I've built since I started, so.
Very helpful. Additional comments on community outreach? If not, we'll place Tracy's report on file. Thank you for your work. Go ahead, certainly.
You mentioned CW Solutions. Can we get a reminder of where, I just don't remember where we left that. You said we're researching into that?
I think we directed the chief that we wanted to know more, but we weren't ready to approve it. So I think he's in a fact-finding.
Well, I think
Mode.
that we've reached the point where we know that that is a gap-filling solution, and we're confident that transitional housing with all those supports is what's required and what's necessary to have a success rate that's going to work. The challenges at this point are the council could approve it, but the funding of it is between $500,000 and $600,000 a year. And so the challenge we've been dealing with is finding financial solutions to that. So one of the things that we did recently was apply for congressionally directed spending from the federal government. I think when we look at the type of money it's going to take in this community to scale that, there's no private entity and there's no fundraising or brat sales or anything we're going to do to come up with, dollars that are in the millions to be able to do that, but the federal government is probably the only entity that has the capability to do that. The alternative is in reaching out and trying to partner with, which wouldn't necessarily be that solution, but a gap-filling solution in transitional housing is to partner with the county. And in my conversations with the county administrator, Lance Leonard, he is currently researching and utilizing staff to look at the other communities that have found a successful way to do transitional supports as well as housing and have Medicaid be the payor for that. So if the county was able to facilitate and utilize North Central Healthcare to have transitional housing that is funded through Medicaid dollars and something that the county manages, I'd be hard pressed to say they're not a great partner.
Right.
We're not there yet, so the gap still exists. There's multiple solutions, but that's my hope is that it might take both of those. But we still believe that's the gap. From a fact-finding standpoint, we're comfortable that those are the gaps. The real challenge for us at this point is to find a sustainable way to fund it, not a one-time funding.
Right.
And so those are the two that have kind of risen to the top, is if the federal government would sponsor us for 3 years. I think we asked for $1.5 million over 3 years. And also if the county were able to find a sustainable funding source for transitional housing through North Central Healthcare, we think that would be outstanding.
Okay, excellent. It's important, I think, and obviously we'll continue to have those discussions going forward to see what impact we can make. It's a big issue, and it's a big issue in communities that are not just ours. So, I think this is something that governments nationwide are grappling with, and, it's just a matter of all of us being able to find some solutions. I don't think that there's ever a complete and total solution. There's certainly none that are cheap and easy. So we continue, but thank you, everybody, for working on this issue, because I know it takes a significant amount of time. It takes all of Tracy's time. It takes a significant amount of time for police and fire and DPW. I think in the first couple days, the mayor can attest, it's taken a number of hours of his time because people are calling, like they're looking for solutions, and so out in the community as he is out meeting with people and having these conversations, it continues to be a source of comment and interest from within the community. So definitely a tall work order for us, but I think that we're up to continuing to try to make incremental impacts. So with that, we have no more agenda items, so I will take a motion to adjourn. Motion from Larson, is there a second? Second from Watson. Members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries. We'll stand adjourned then. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow for council.